Today, we become legends.
Some Smite gods stick to the path and play it safe, while others explore the unknown and come back with some downright game-changing mechanics to boot. This video will be all about those gods in Smite that have absolutely game-changing mechanics within their kits that make you play a whole different way. If you're enjoying the flurry of top 10s recently, then be sure to subscribe to the channel as there'll be more where this one came from. And if you have any other ideas for top 10s that I can do on the channel in the future, then definitely leave a comment down below. But without further ado, and in no particular order, let's jump in with number 10. So number 10 is Cuchulain's Rage mechanic. This one is for sure one of the most game-changing mechanics out there, as it entirely replaces Kuchu's mana bar with a Rage meter that he uses to cast abilities instead. This Rage meter also controls his Berserk stance change, which activates at 85 Rage, or maybe 80, I'm not sure, and gives him a whole new set of off-cooldown abilities to go ham with before transforming back. Without this Rage mechanic, the god would not be who he is today and would have an entirely different playstyle and vision. That to me is one that has to make this list. Number 9, Bellona's weapon swapping. Another that the god would simply not be the same without. Bellona's core mechanic of switching between her 3 weapons of choice really defines her playstyle, with each weapon matching one of her abilities, being Sword and Shield for Shield Bash, Hammer for Bludgeon, and Scourge for, well, Scourge. A lot of Bellona's gameplay relies heavily on utilising these weapons she gets after her abilities. From extra wave clear with the Hammer, to sustain from Scourge, to boxing ADCs and shield stands, Bellona simply wouldn't feel like the god she does today without it, a well-deserved spot on the list. Number 8, Janus and Horus Global Mobility. Next up at number 8, we have 2 picks in one, and that's Horus and Janus' ultimates. Global Mobility is a highly prized asset in Smite. Only a handful of gods have Global Mobility, and they're usually on ultimates such as Apollo's Across the Skies or Athena's Defender of Olympus. But Janus and Horus can give global mobility to their entire team, which is why they take a spot on this list. This is one that the gods would still function without this mechanic, but it would definitely change how they're played in a dramatic way. These 2 gods play heavily around their ultimate, and if it didn't provide the insane global mobility that it does, who knows how they would even play without it. Number 7, Olaron's Slow Time. So coming in at number 7, we have a mechanic that makes one of the most powerful ults in the game so powerful, and that of course is Olaron's Slow Time capabilities. By the way, if you say Olaron isn't up there with the greats in terms of ults, you're trolling. Entire teamfights can be flipped on their head by a well-timed Olaron ult, and much like the previous ones of Janus and Horus, he can provide this benefit to his team also. Just because something does no damage doesn't make it a bad ability by any means. Granted, his team don't get sped up, but the enemy team all get slowed down, which is basically the equivalent of speeding your team up. This ultimate is incredibly powerful, and its game-changing mechanic of slowing time is definitely worth a spot on this list. So coming in at number 6 is arguably the most defining support ability in the entire game, and that's of course Geb Shield. Yes, shield mechanics exist in the game, elsewhere in plentiful amounts. Hell, Shell exists, anyone can shield. The difference being Geb's Stone Shield not only gives way more HP, but also cleanses CC off of its allies, much like Chiron's 1 and a few other abilities in the game, which in itself is a unique mechanic really. I don't know, for me, I just felt weird not including Geb Shield on a list of iconic god mechanics. It's been in the game for what feels like forever and has always been powerful. Hell, at release it scaled on Geb's max HP, and so he could easily 1k shield carries in teamfights, making him one of the most broken god releases of all time. Definitely deserving of a spot on the list in my personal opinion. Number 5, Awilix Ultimate. This one was asked for probably a dozen or more times on the most satisfying assassin abilities list, and it was definitely in consideration for that, but for game-changing mechanics, I think it simply has to be on this list. Knockups in Smite, aside from a few very specific exceptions which we'll discuss later, are an uncleansable CC. Once the knockup hits, you take the full duration regardless of if you beads or not. This makes Awilix ult a game changer with its ability to interact with knocked up enemies. No other ability in the game does this in this way, and I think it definitely deserves a spot here as Awilix's star ability. Number 4, King Arthur / Izanami autos. So this one mostly goes out to all those unique attack chains in Smite. For those that don't know, Smite's basic attacks usually fire at 1.0 speed and 1.0 damage for most characters. But some have unique chains that for example end with a half as fast but twice as damaging swing like Nejar. King Arthur and Izanami take this to another level though, with their auto attacks that barely feel recognisable compared to standard basics. Arthur's of course don't scale with attack speed, hit AoE, and provide a substantial lunge that can combine with his basic abilities to get extra range on them, while Izanami's boomerang auto attacks come back to her, dealing damage on the outswing and return swing and passing through minions, giving her amazing wave clear. There are many unique auto attack chains in Smite beyond the ones I've mentioned here. Yamoja for example can heal allies with basic attacks, so let me know if you want an entire top 10 or top 8 of the best or most creative basic attack chains in the game. But for now, this is where all those unique chains will stand on this list. Number 3, Changa's Rabbits. A mechanic like no other, introduced on July 24th, 2013 with the release of Changa. While she cannot speak for herself, Changa's Jade Rabbit does the talking for her. However, it also has gameplay implications for Changa, since the rabbit can run back to the fountain to buy items for her instead of having to back herself. This is a truly unique mechanic that we are yet to really see on any other god. The only thing that comes closest really is Jingwei or Haim that can easily get back to lane, so they just run back and return as opposed to sending a rabbit. Either way though, a very cool and unique mechanic. Number 2, various knockup immunities. I told you we'd be back to look at knockups again, didn't I? This time we're talking about the various mechanics that make certain gods resistant or sometimes immune to knockups. One of the most powerful CCs in the game. First we have Jingwei, who can simply use her dash straight from being knocked up, rendering them pretty much useless against her outside of the initial split second she's airborne before realizing and dashing out. Next is Jormungandr, who is completely immune to knockups always, but much like Jingwei, has a drawback. This time, Jorm is stunned instead of being knocked up and he takes more damage for a short time. For those that have watched my every CC ranked worst to best video, you'll know that this is still worth having simply because knockups are way stronger than stuns in Smite. And finally we have Terra, whose drawback is that she needs to have a standing stun up at all times in order to be knockup immune. It's not permanent. Of course, there are many abilities with knockup immunity like Thor's 3, most channeled abilities realistically, but I was mainly trying to highlight the ones that have a common and large impact on games such as these 3. But let's jump into the number 1 spot where we have Yamoja's Omi. Yeah, this isn't really ordered, but if I had to choose a top one, it would be this or Cuchulain's Rage mechanic. For the uninitiated, Yamoja doesn't use mana and her abilities have no cooldown. Sounds OP, right? Well, yeah it is, but there's a catch. Yamoja's Omi system basically takes numbers of mana and turns them into drops of Omi on a set conversion rate. These Omi drops are then used to cast abilities. Her ultimate also regens her a large amount of Omi for the duration. This is a really core mechanic for Yamoja, and she's quote-unquote balanced accordingly since she has no traditional ability cooldowns on her basic 3, though her ultimate does still have a cooldown of course. I just feel like changing the entire mana bar and having a whole kit designed around this Omi system makes for a clean number 1 placement on this list. But that's it for the top 10 most game-changing mechanics within God Kits. If you enjoyed this one, then don't forget to drop a like before you leave and sub to the channel for all the top 10s coming shortly, and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out you nerds.